that's probably a good time to get cracking. So I'll start with the instructions, and if a few people join us during that, then that's great. So a big thank you to everybody for joining us, and in particular our two guests, who I'll introduce very shortly. My name's Jake Foster. I'm the head of the legal and product group at Robin AI. So Robin is a legal technology company with a very simple mission: make contracts simple. We are a blend of pure software and managed service using software that we've developed in-house. We call it AI Plus, the plus being the human experts that we have in-house. And what we've put together is a little series of webinars based around the general concept, the future of legal. So each of these webinars this week is going to touch on slightly different aspects. So today we're talking about in-house lawyers using technology. We won't necessarily be running down a full list of everything that's available, but interesting to hear from these guys about things that they've tried successfully, what they would like technology to do, and hopefully touch on a few things. There'll be other webinars going into a bit more detail about some of the machine learning aspects behind the scenes and some of the slightly more technical bits that I would not pretend to be an expert in. So today we'll kick off, and hopefully some of this will be of interest, in particular to the in-house lawyers among you. Let me introduce our two fabulous guests. So we have both sides of the fence, which we're very pleased about. We have Radhika Rani with us. Radhika is a senior legal counsel at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. I have to disclose some sort of, it's not a conflict, it's a prior knowledge of Radhika. Radhika and I used to work together at Skadden back when I was in private practice. So Radhika is a board member for HPE's, and I'll need to get this right, the Worldwide Innovation Law Lab. Is that correct, Radhika?
That's right.
And prior to that, obviously, was an associate in the M&A group at Skadden. Prior to that, was at Chapman Tripp in New Zealand. And then Lowri Jones on the other side of the fence, albeit you've been back and forth. Lowri is a corporate partner in the transaction services group at Cripps. Or rather the head of the transaction services group at Cripps. But prior to that, you've been in-house, I think I'm right, at Morgan Sindall Investments, and then prior to that, actually in private practice again. At what is now Squire Patton Boggs. So I think we've got a good range of experience, hopefully, on both sides. So the idea of this is just to have we're going to hang this particular webinar on a couple of topics or themes, hopefully most of which are relevant to the life of the in-house lawyer, whether you're the head of the team or just a part of it and trying to work out what's going on, and in particular how technology can help. So we're going to kind of base it around 4 key things: contract review, negotiation, that kind of thing, contract storage, data retrieval, what actually happens to contracts once you've executed them, then a couple more on the operational side of things in the team, whether it's setting goals for your team or looking at the dreaded word capacity management for clients and for lawyers. Utilization, I think, is a euphemism that is equally painful, but how can technology help? What solutions are there? What would we like there to be to help the in-house team? So maybe I'll stop talking for a bit and I'll kick off by just throwing a real open one to you guys. Maybe Radhika, if you want to go first, just in terms of at HPE, what are you kind of thinking about? How are you guys thinking about technology? As a technology company yourself, presumably you're quite tech forward. How are you guys using it in the legal sphere?
Yeah, so thanks, Jake, and nice to virtually meet everyone online. So ever since HP's inception, we've always been focused on sort of transforming the way we work, whether it be for our governance practices or simply our day-to-day operations, our day-to-day interactions, and how we execute and close deals. So we always, throughout all of this, we've always incorporated technological innovations throughout to foster efficiency in those types of key areas to allow us to reduce the time that we spend doing administrative matters and really offer valuable control points and establish meaningful collaboration across our diverse teams globally. Accordingly, the technology has really been a sort of pivotal point in how we manage our day-to-day executions. So we're highly encouraged to actually think outside of the box. whether it be coming up with new ideas on how to interact. One of them includes virtual reality, which I'm sure we can talk about at some point. But you know, we have a virtual reality program. We have a very interactive program that allows us to do a little bit of data-driven capacity management and understand actually what our goals are, whether it be individual or team goals. So the way we approach it is open-mindedness, and everyone is encouraged to think outside the box and share their ideas.
So very tech encouraged sort of place. That's good. And how about you, Lowri? What are you kind of trying to create?
Well, I suppose it is quite a good contrast, really, because coming from a sort of more traditional background, kind of traditional sort of more real estate focused law firm, it's definitely a different kind of mindset. But I think that for us in the corporate division over the last sort of 5 years, we're very much focused on trying to deliver what clients are looking for. And having conducted a few programs where we really sort of dig into that with them through various sort of interviewing techniques, etc., we really honed in on the drive for efficiency and the need for better collaboration with clients. And having worked in-house myself as well, that kind of felt right to me. So there's a lot of initiatives going that I've been part of to try and get that movement or change into what is quite a traditional structure and process of working that people are used to doing. It means that they really have to change what they're doing fundamentally, which is quite a challenge sometimes. But yeah, it's definitely a focus. And for new people coming through, young lawyers, etc., it's definitely encouraged. And you know, this sort of innovative mindset, progress over perfection, that kind of mentality is definitely what we really on board with.
Good. I was slightly worried I'd ask both of you and someone would say, yeah, we don't really care about tech at all, which would have stopped the conversation. So I'm glad that you've answered that way. That's excellent.
Yeah.
So let's jump into it. Let's start looking at some of these the particular pain points. I think I would say, Robin, just as a starter, Robin, we're quite, I guess, uniquely positioned as a provider of legal tech software, but also a bit of a managed service as well, using our own software, where we're constantly in conversations, whether they're with current clients or prospects. So we are privileged, but occasionally we do just kind of hear people moaning about what is currently not available, what they would like to be able to do, and the problems they have. So some of this is based on that. So the first one I wanted to talk about was the actual review using technology in the day-to-day review and negotiation of contracts. And in particular, we see a lot of what we would consider to be routine, high volume, relatively low risk documents. We work with a lot of financial institutions, and I think the work there, you know, these are things like release letters, engagement letters, non-disclosure agreements, that kind of thing. They seem to have ballooned recently, which is extraordinary. I think the number of deals getting done, or at least looked at, is extremely high. And part of our software is designed to deal with that. I don't know, maybe Lowri, first and foremost, how do you think about that, or what are you guys using currently?
So I think for me, the point on that to do with pains is really the accessibility to tech for a mid-market corporate business, because without that kind of volume that you get in the Magic Circle, Silver Circle firms, the ratio, you know, the cost versus investment benefit is difficult to justify to begin with. So getting on that ladder of being able to actually utilize it when you don't have massive volumes was a big pain for me, to try and figure out how could we use this tech when the reality of our transaction base is not the same as Clifford Chance or etc. So how are we going to make that work? Because this tech seems like it's only really accessible for people with that kind of demand. And so we started a journey where we looked at a few different things, and we adopted this sort of progress over perfection kind of mentality, and looked at sort of more short-term contracts, products that weren't, you know, absolutely perfect, that did the job, that were easy to use, so that we could get the people using them. And so we have got a product at the moment that does an AI review of contracts, which we haven't had before, and which had a slightly different cost base or way of charging us, which meant it was more affordable to us. So, and I think, to be honest, more time passes, the more I'm seeing there's more accessibility to things like that. So I think that there was a high concentration of the tech solutions being delivered for the larger firms. I think now the mid-market are coming into play, and there will be more solutions for people with a similar sort of base, client base. Yeah, so that was one of the big pains. Oh yeah, the gain is that we're using something, we're actually having a go, and we're saving time, and it's making us more efficient using what we do have. Even if it isn't absolutely perfect, we are teaching the people in our team how to use it, and there's lots of things like that is beneficial, regardless of the fact that it might not be absolutely the best solution right now.
And I'll come back in a second on a slight paradox that we've kind of found with talking to some law firms and technology. But maybe, Radhika, do you want to give your view? How are you, or rather, what are you using, if anything? What would you like to be using in terms of technology to help you with your, just your day-to-day document negotiation, reviews, that kind of thing?
So I mean, high volume, low risk contracts is obviously just extremely time consuming, and it can be so inefficient if you don't have the right use of technology. Whether it be something as simple as just using Outlook and going back and forth on documents, or SharePoint, or a particular AI tool, at the end of the day, I think all everyone is trying to do is increase efficiency and reduce the time as much as possible on these types of documents. So the way we approach this is we have a lot of collaboration tools internally at the business that we use in case we need quick answers to quick questions as we go through these types of high volume, low risk contracts, of which I would hope there's not too many questions. But to the extent that they are, and the types of documents I'm thinking here are NDAs, we use a combination of technology and sort of the right team that's purely focused and specialized for us to help us out on these high volume documents. So for us, it's mostly NDAs, and we have a specialist team who focus on NDAs for us. So I think that's more or less how we manage it. This is on one side of the spectrum, though, on high volume, low risk contracts. On the complete other side, I have to note for our M&A deal team, for example, where they're doing strategically complex contracts, it's entirely different, and their use of technology is, for example, virtual reality. They've created. So
this you have to tell us about, because I really want to know how this works.
I'll do a little bit
briefly,
of a sidestep into this.
But
so they use Oculus Quest headsets. And they've created in this virtual reality deal rooms, and that allows them to sort of have private spaces for large teams to manage their complex deals, to have document sharing live in this highly immersive environment. Just as you would have done in a physical room, they hold their meetings in these rooms, which again feels incredibly immersive, and you've got a seat around the table, and you have a face-to-face engagement through your avatar, or now there's tools in there where you're sort of physically actually present in the room with the video as well. So I think.
And can you actually live negotiate the document? Can you make the change?
Yeah, you can mark it up right in front of you. You've got a screen that everyone looks at. And we also they've also held a number of training sessions in there. They also hold mock trials for our litigation team. They also have innovation workshops. So we run yearly hackathons, which I think a lot of companies do, but we run hackathons with big prize money behind it for coming up with the most innovative way of doing your day-to-day aspects, whether that be pricing tools, whether that be contract negotiation, whether that be collaboration. So completely different sides of the spectrum.
A real smorgasbord. That's extraordinary. So maybe just to return very briefly, Lowri, then we'll move on to the kind of paradox that I mentioned earlier. So one thing that, and I don't know whether this is more myth than reality, but kind of a consideration that we've heard from some law firms when we've spoken to them is law firms tend to bill their clients hourly, right? And
Yeah.
I guess one of the key benefits, I guess, of good legal technology products is that it should, in theory, be a time saver. So have you thought about that? How do you kind of square that? You know, if in theory you have legal technology which actually reduces the amount of time that you guys take to do stuff, how do you kind of square that with your client billings?
Yeah, so well, we've been on we're on a bit of a journey with that mindset change. I think at the beginning, when we started looking at products like using HiQ and the sort of collaboration tools on that, and using that for due diligence to speed things up, it kind of made us more relevant and increased our accelerated our growth in the kinds of deals that we were doing at the kind of sectors we were working in. And then we kind of got to a point where we were winning pitches because of our approach to efficiency and tech, and that kind of bedded in a bit. And then I get to the point where I'm thinking, well, actually, we can't be giving. It's not right that we need to illustrate an ROI so return on our investment in some way, because we have invested a lot of time, like my time, for example, that's investment time, or time of other people in my team. How can we make money back on that? And so the concept of the chargeable hour versus a fixed fee or something becomes a lot more relevant. With fixed fees work, you can be more confident when you've established the tech rollout, how well you can manage it. And I've got examples of matters that I've been able to be very successful with a fixed fee and come in quite a lot less. And I don't feel like that's cheating the client out of money, because the reality is that job was worth that amount of money. It's just that we've already paid for a lot of the time invested in it beforehand. So I think ongoing, there are conversations to be had about packaging these products in different ways to achieve sort of more equilibrium between what the clients want and what the law firm wants. But in my mind, things like when we have an automated package for a client that's with bespoke documents linked to, say, a portal that they use in-house, why can't we charge a fee for that? That's not based on time spent, that's just a renewal fee or something like that reflect, as long as it reflects what they need and they want, then there's value there. And I don't see why it should all be based on a chargeable hour. I think we just need to move away. Well, I think we need to think about different ways. Obviously, there's lots of things where the chargeable hour does work, and there's lots of things where fixed fees don't work, or maybe it's just a combination. So that's the journey that we've been going through at the moment, and I don't know where it will lead. But it
brings us. I think that brings us really nicely onto perhaps topic 2, where we talk about contract storage, which again is a very generic term, but ultimately you do. And I'm a corporate lawyer, so I guess we do deals. Real estate, I'm sure, is the same. Banking and finance transactions, all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, you're left at the end of a transaction, hopefully with a happy client, but a whole bundle of documentation, a piece of paper, really, whether they're PDFs or whatever. And we've heard from our clients and prospects that there are all manner of solutions that people have. There are some very high-tech kind of document management systems and that kind of thing, none of which are particularly, let's say, clever or smart in the way that they handle things. And I'll come on to what that means. But all the way through to, they just go and sit in someone's inbox and you hope that they don't lose their laptop or leave it on the train, frankly. And I know that a big part of the corporate lawyer's life, if you're in-house, I guess you're asking your external counsel to do this. If you're private practice, you are creating the Bibles or bundles or whatever they are for the end of the transaction. So maybe just thinking about how you guys, or what you guys would like when it comes to simply storing your documents, but then how do you want to be able to use them after, do you want them just to sit there? Do you want them to pop up in 2 years' time and tell you, hey, there's a renewal about to happen? Maybe Radhika, how do you guys think about this internally? What kind of solutions do you have, would you like?
Contract storage for us, Jake, isn't just about finding a place for its home, for it to just sit there. it's very much needing to be a document that we look at back and forth, depending, of course, the type of document it is. For example, if you've just got a framework agreement, you do need to refer back to it. And if you've got a statement of work that sits under it, there'll be potentially a number of change orders. So there's constant management of a contract that's required. So for us, contract storage is not just finding a home, it's a way to interact with it in the most, again, efficient way possible. What we want from a contract management system is for it to proactively notify you about things. For example, as you've just mentioned, a renewal. You've got a renewal coming up, or a document's about to expire. So you know, someone has to then go and speak to the customer and say, right, you know, do you further require our services? Let's reassess your needs. So, you know, we need that type of system to be there. Also, quite simply, sometimes you've just got notification requirements. Sometimes you've got weekly or monthly or quarterly reports that a customer might require. So it's these types of distinct elements that come out from a contract that you really do need a system to proactively inform you about. But parking that to one side, what I think we really want is, and you know, it always gets everyone really interested to talk about this, is we want to be able to ask questions of the contract. Sounding a bit robotic, but we want to be able to ask questions of the contract, such as what does the audit clause say, or what are the payment terms on this document, or does this document cover X type of our business unit sales services. So you want to be able to quickly and efficiently question the contract as and when you need to. So I think that's what we look for in our contract storage management type tools.
Super helpful. And how about you, Lowri? How do you think about it from a kind of private practice perspective?
Yeah, I suppose it's less about, in terms of talking about contract storage, it's more that I'm coming at it from a sort of transactional perspective. So for, you know, doing due diligence on the documents that we store in our data platform, you know, what Radhika was just talking about then, using the question. So what I've done with our system is created, so rethought the way that we did due diligence, and that I was always taught it, you know, with your questionnaire, and you send it out, you get your answers and you put it back in. We've created a kind of a new process within the system where the question and answers are all uploaded into an interactive Excel spreadsheet, I suppose you could call it, and linked to the document. So gone are the days of, well, I don't know if you ever did that, but I spent a lot of hours as a junior person doing cross-referencing and cross-reference updates and question updates and further inquiries and that kind of thing. So it's all accessible. So I think the word that keeps on coming back to me about document storage is accessibility and collaboration, because really it's, I want a place where I can put documents that are the deal documents to be negotiated, and I want a place to have the disclosure bundle that we can refer to and search and use. So I want it all to be in one product in a way, but I haven't quite been able to find that. But using a product to be able to answer the question, so that when you've got those due diligence questions that you have to answer or disclose, you're not there going through hundreds of contracts looking for the change of control, which is really boring. You can just ask the question and it points you in the right direction. With, obviously, it would be great if we could just do it completely, but you know, hopefully you can get a product that can sort of machine learn and get used to those kind of clauses and become more productive in that sense. So that, yeah, I want a whole place where that can happen, and where you can even put your live documents and do that sort of live negotiation at the same time. So it's like a deal room, but not virtual. I didn't think of the virtual one, but that is the ideal, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah.
Lowri, would you, sorry, if you don't mind, Jake, if I just ask a question, because one of the things that we do also explore for our contract storage is obviously the ability to be able to use it for a precedent system. So would you also be sort of utilizing it for a sort of a precedent bank where, you know, you might have drafted a fantastic material adverse change clause and you really need to go back and look at it?
Yeah, so you can use and set up some of these collaboration platforms in any way that you kind of want. It really depends on how the firm has got them all aligned, I suppose. But yeah, it's definitely somewhere that you could put a knowledge bank, or I use it for capacity planning as well. So team management, task management, that kind of thing. Yes. So as this sort of client portal perspective, storing data for a client that might not have a sophisticated IT system as well, and they can access historic things that they're doing, current things that they've done, all sorts of stuff, and it all be linked together, so that they can see where all work is for that we have for them, and maybe that they even add extra things if they're paying a subscription for it or something like that. It becomes part. So we would really get under the skin of the client then, because it makes the relationship a lot stickier when we're kind of linked in that way through our tech.
So this is I'll get slapped if I don't say it. You'll allow me a one-sentence plug then for one of our products, which is just so happens to be exactly in that space. I'll keep it really brief. We do have a product called Queryable Contracts Qc. And it's intended, Radhika, to do exactly what you kind of wanted to do. It uses machine learning to pick up, categorize, classify documents according to clause type, and even those values within specific clauses, such that in theory, instead of waiting, because I mean, the number of diligence exercises I did at, I've already said Skadden, so I won't say an unnamed law firm, but for clients where there was just a great deal of reading, a huge amount of client money spent on wading through contracts, trying to find material adverse change or change of control or something like that, or even just the simple value, the cap on a liability for a particular thing. And what we want to do is automate all of that. So by simply uploading it, it is then categorized using machine learning, and then you can query it by simply, typing in a what you want to find, and it will give it back to you. So there are solutions there. We are certainly working on it, and I think we've identified that as a real key pain point for a lot of our customers and a lot of people across in-house private practice. It's just an obvious point that people want solved, really. So maybe we touched briefly on this. Let's do it slightly out of order. Lowri, you mentioned kind of capacity planning for your team, for yourself. How do you, or historically, maybe over the course of your career, how have you kind of seen that change, if at all?
Okay, well, we moved away from the traditional partner and the partner's associate concept that everybody who's ever worked private practice probably is familiar with. And we don't really want to work like that, because a combination of the type of team that we had lots of female people. We were sort of just outside London. There was a high volume of females, high volume of sort of part-time people, lots of ex sort of London people coming for work-life balance, that kind of stuff. So we had this mixture of a team that we knew we needed to be quite flexible with, and not that kind of traditional structure. And so it started from there, really, and it became that we had all this information in our head about what people's learning needs were, what kind of jobs they needed to do, how much capacity they had, this, and that, and the other. And the more we were trying to struggle with remembering all those different things to be able to allocate work. So we funneled the work through two key partners or managers in a team. And that was taking up a lot of our time. So I kind of started thinking about the roles that I kind of heard about in London, where people were sort of using project management tools to help delegate work and keep hold of capacity, etc. So starting to use within our collaboration platform like a tasking module where you could set it up with people and the tasks, and it monitor where you're at with certain people so that you know where you are. And really, I think there's a lot more that I could do on that side. It's just that I've got very little help with that. So it's something that we have to do ourselves. But I can really, really see being able to create something more where people send, a bit like when they send dictations to something, you could have it like that, where they send jobs and the jobs go to the list that could accumulate the list, and it could have things like it ticks boxes for certain sector practice knowledge, things like that. So if you were looking to do, if you had an objective that required a certain area of specialism or something, you could have those things listed, and then it almost not, I don't know if it makes it available to the feelers and then they select it. I don't know if that would exactly work, but there's something about that quite appeals to me, because I think we spend a lot of time allocating and trying to make it all perfect, or might all happen much easier if you kind of give that freedom to people. So I'm on the lookout for making something like that something a bit bespoke out of a product like that, so that we can help us with our day-to-day team management. I certainly
approve strongly of the idea of it, rather than capacity management being something that is imposed on people, certainly individual lawyers.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I think a lot of them feel overwhelmed, whether you're whatever sort of business you're in, is it's not nuanced enough sometimes. But I know, Radhika, you and I have spoken. You've got a kind of a range of, you've got some kind of old school stuff, I guess, but also you're using it in a relatively modern way with your micro rotations thing. Maybe do you want to touch on both of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, in terms of the old school one, I mean, it's pretty obvious, like what you can expect. We have internal reporting, where I think, Lowri, it's a list sort of element that you kind of mentioned there. We work really closely with our clients, right? For us as our own internal clients, and we have very strong relationships with them. We attend their weekly meetings, for example, not least to know what is the workload coming in, but also, in fact, just to be better lawyers, because it allows us to understand what the pain points are of the business and what might be upcoming that we need to think about, because we'd also like to understand what the strategic avenues are and what challenges might be and what areas of improvements might be, whether that be in the business internally or externally. So that's sort of that old school element of engaging with the business, and everyone has a vested interest in actually doing it. So there's no sort of, unlike private practice, I suppose, this is, everyone is so heavily vested, because we sort of, do consider ourselves very close business advisors. But in terms of beyond that, and sort of something new that we have deployed, it's a concept called micro rotations, where we basically use a tool where you online have a list of potential jobs and tasks that are available globally around the world. And it's sort of in a list format, and it gives you an idea of how many hours it's anticipated or envisaged to take, and how many people are required for it. And it's a very easy collaborative tool, which allows people to not only or team members to actually focus on their data capacity planning, and sort of use resources outside of their immediate team, but also it allows people to think outside the box. It gives them the opportunity to do something that maybe it's not their day-to-day job, but it's something they've always been interested in. For example, IP research on a case or on a particular topic, or pro bono, or an idea for a hackathon. I mean, it could be absolutely anything that we put into this portal. And that's been very successful within the business. And in fact, that has actually led sometimes to even secondments, short-term secondments for teams. So not only is it a very, very good tool to sort of have a data-driven capacity planning sort of aspect to it, where folks can see how much workload is available, but also it allows upskilling, and it allows collaboration, and it brings in the fun of working with different people. So that's what I would say for
it sounds brilliant. That's exactly what I kind of think that I would like. Who decides which tasks go in it, and how do you make that decision as to when do you say, oh no, this task is just not suitable for that? Or because it sounds like it's not every task, it's particular tasks, is that right?
It's particular task, it's not every task, and you would decide, people are given the liberty to sort of decide what they need to put in there. The folks who would use it are are sort of more senior lawyers
Yeah.
in our team, especially from the legal department, who do utilize it. So no one needs sort of hand holding. Everyone's sort of allowed to put sort of whatever they need on there. So there's less management that's involved, which is quite good, because it's a very self-sufficient tool.
I think I'm going to take that idea.
I love it though, because it is a sort of a source of engagement, isn't it? It's far from being, oh, Struth, I've got another 6 jobs on my list. It's actually, now I can go and try something, and it's a bit of personal development, it's a bit of team development. I love that.
Absolutely.
Maybe just to give a quick view and to ground perhaps this capacity management is something that, of course, as part of our managed service, we need to look at very carefully, because it's important to part of the AI plus. The plus is looking after the people internally here. To give just a concrete example, we've actually moved away as a team. I've lost my lights. We've moved away as a team from Outlook, and now we use an email application called Front, which you may or may not be aware of. I think they are, let's call them a scale up rather than a startup. But what they've done is they've created a kind of an email client that works really well with different specific client inboxes in a shared fashion. So rather than having your one Outlook account, which all your emails come into, for individual clients, they'll go into separate things. But in addition to that, they've built in all sorts of metrics and tracking and that kind of thing. So there are elements of it that are definitely quite big brother, and you want to be careful with that, particularly managing a team. But there are some also really useful things. You can see, for example, if somebody's getting completely overwhelmed because they've been sending, they sent 58 emails yesterday morning, clearly that person needs some help. And similarly, somebody may be bored up to tears, they've only sent 3 emails in the last month. So that kind of thing, I think there are products and solutions that are kind of coming out that tackle similar problems, or they do similar things, but with another layer of, they've actually just thought about how people interact, whether they're working remotely or whatever. It just works quite nicely. Not sponsored by Front, but we've quite liked it so far.
Sounds good.
Right, so we're running relatively tight. Let's just spend a couple of minutes on the final point, which was to do with how more operational again, thinking about team objectives, whether they're individual or whether they are the whole legal team, and how that relates to the whole company. Do you guys have anything? I mean, how have you been thinking about this sort of thing? I mean, obviously from a management perspective, Lowri, how have you been kind of thinking about setting team objectives?
Well, yeah.
To the extent you have, maybe it's been kind of, because I remember in practice it was for us, I guess we had some individual metrics or targets that we kind of at the beginning of the year you just sort of articulate and try and hit, but it was very amorphous,
I suppose it's all linked in. Currently, what we currently do is linked in with the system, the collaboration system that we have. But what when you're talking about managing a team and having to do all the appraisals and objectives and that, what would be really nice is having somewhere where that all sits. So you we don't have that at the moment, but we are potentially going to have a new system that does that, where you have the appraisals linked to the objectives, are linked to the training system, linked to, and it all being in one place where you can monitor that. And then ideally it would be linked to something like what we were just talking about then, when you're tasking things out, you can tick boxes because you can see, there's a task here that links to that objective, and then that person has taken that task that ticks that objective. So really it's just, it's things about sort of saving time for the team management, and making it more accessible and open to the rest of the team so that they can see what we're doing. Because I think that there's always an element of, what do these people, what are they doing? We just want it to be something that people are aware of and can see and track themselves.
And linked slightly to the bigger picture, I guess, as well, rather than just being individual, kind of having some idea of what's going on at a slightly higher level as well. Yeah,
exactly. And I think sort of that managing people, so the people point to do with the whole tech onboarding and stuff is really key. Understanding how they react to any kind of rollout that you've got, or capacity that they have. It's just we just can't do this tech stuff without bringing them along with us. So how we achieve that, and whether we achieve it more through some sort of tech process, I suppose, or platform, or combination of both. I mean, for us, we've been doing a lot of sort of change improvement project type things where we're having small groups of people sort of think about an innovative way that we could do something differently in a bid to kind of bring them along that process and sort of generate those ideas and create something different out of it. So that's something that we've been trying to do. But but that isn't using the tech that we use to do that is just stuff like Miro or something like that, you know, to try and make it more interactive with people. But yeah, I suppose there's lots of things that you can do, aren't there? But
exactly, it's kind of hitting on one solution that fits all might be impossible. It may not be the case. I don't know, Radhika, do you have at HPE, how are kind of, let's say, team objectives, how are they communicated to you? What would you like would you like it to improve or change with tech?
So I think for the legal department, we are such a heavily engaged team, even at a global level. I'm on a day-to-day basis. I could be speaking to someone in any multiple countries around the world with my colleagues. So we're so heavily engaged with each other that everyone's very attuned to what our team objectives. So, I mean, you can even just imagine the traditional sense. We have our head of department who, shares the vision and goal for the rest of the year. And then there are different ways for folks to get involved in order to achieve those goals. But the way in which that we sort of execute it on a more sort of granular level is this concept of OKRs, which is objective key results. So anyone you can just Google OKR and you can see what it means. But there's a whole theory behind honing in on goal setting by using this potential aspect. So it's very much focused on anything you're trying to do. What is your objective? And what is the key result that you're looking for? So we're very sort of results driven. Even going back to the idea of the hackathons, for example, anything of sort which allows one to think outside the box, to be really innovative, even if it costs money, fine. Put your proposal forward, but really truly understand what is the business statement, the problem statement that you're trying to address, and when you address it, what is the key result that you intend to achieve from it, and how will you measure that success? So this sort of way of thinking is ingrained in us as to how all of us think about all of our objectives. And we also have a platform that is available for folks to use where we can set our goals and monitor and demonstrate our achievements. Somewhat of an interactive dashboard, let's say, where you can, track the progress. And it's actually also designed, again, to promote that collaboration amongst employees. Well, I shouldn't say employees. Actually, at HP, we don't call each other employees, we call each other team members because we, have that close-knit community. So those are the types of things that we focus on, Jake, when we think about our framing and meeting our team objectives and also individual objectives as part of that team.
Which is great to hear. So much of that is so familiar to us at Robin, because we also subscribe to the idea of OKRs. We have OKRs for the team, for every team, engineering, legal, whatever, sales. But then we have the broader company objectives, and we use a product called Notion, which is, you can think of it a bit like a Wikipedia page. You can build whatever you want on it, but ultimately it's a repository for information. But we use it, we have our company updates and team updates and all the rest. And it's a really nice way of, you can make it as sophisticated or as unsophisticated as you like. You could simply have a list of objectives and tick them off one by one. Luckily, we have some engineers in the business, so they have built some very shiny, lovely looking things with green lights and red lights and all sorts. So there are definitely ways of tracking it, and it certainly does bring a bit more engagement to everybody in the team. It's not just for the managers to look at and say, well, I need to push harder on this particular one. I think it does foster a sense of engagement with everyone. They kind of have ownership for that particular bit. Fabulous. Okay, well, I note from the clock that we are at time. Perhaps a question to Neha and Anastasia. I haven't had any questions asked. If any of the attendees would like to ask any questions, I'm told that there is a Q&A function. So we'll, while I'm doing the outro, if anyone has any questions, do feel free to type them as quickly as you possibly can, and we'll see if we can answer them. Maybe Lowri, Radhika, anything final that you wanted to kind of pick up on in terms of the tech? Hopefully it's all quite exciting.
Really exciting. I'm so pleased that we have this forum to talk about this, and thank you so much, Jake, for setting this up, and Lowri for being a great panelist to speak with, because one of the thing for us is we go back to the core of what we're talking about, which is how technology helps lawyers or everyone really to improve our lives and execute our day-to-day basis. It's got so many advantages, and I think all of us know about it in terms of reducing time, giving flexibility, accessibility, improving work, allowing lawyers in particular to then focus on on the value aspect of adding value as opposed to doing the churn of just documents. But it's of course got its limitations, putting aside the fact of maybe it's too accessible, too much interaction with or lack thereof of work-life balance. But one thing is that just because technology is available and accessible, it's not always easy to use. So I think that's something that's really important for everyone to sort of always bear in mind, is trying to find that easy to use access, and thinking about implementing it is very hard in terms of course, management of change. And that's even after you've got through the idea of implementing it and seeing what the value of investment will be in any investment that you do. So those are all very difficult and interesting topics, and I'm just so grateful that we've got this topic to talk about, because it can be very overwhelming for folks who are just starting on their journey, or even during their journey. Finding the right tool is particularly hard. Do you do it yourself? Do you get a consultant, but they don't understand your business? There's so much behind this topic, so I'm very grateful to be able to speak about it with both of you, and share our thoughts with the audience. Lowri?
Thank you. Yeah, I second those comments, and I think actually that's one of my top tips. I think for onboarding a new product, you don't go for the most difficult one. Look for something that is going to be easy to pick up. It might not be the most shiny, glamorous one that's got the best well-known 5-star reviews. It might be startup. It might be some startup companies sometimes have got a lot more support that they can give you compared to some of the big providers out there. We get we're a very, very, very small fish in a very big pond with someone like Thomson Reuters, but with another provider we're quite important to them. So there's a lot difference of service, but you're going for something that you can see people using, and just go for something short term so that you can learn and make the mistakes and just move on. I might well have made a wrong decision in my AI platform that I've gone for a year, but then we've only got it for a year. We can make that decision and move on, and that I won't be beating myself up about it. But I think that's the decision, is to do something, not nothing. So it's just moving forward bit by bit.
I think that's such a valuable tip to take away, and I think if you feel overwhelmed, there are no real wrong choices. I think this is the future, and it's just going to get more deeper and more sophisticated, and hopefully more user friendly, because that's the next step. I think maybe I'll just leave everybody with the kind of the Robin House view, which is we do feel that artificial intelligence is extraordinarily important. I mean, it is the building block of all of our products. And it is going to take over the world, whether we like it or not. But I think we see a huge amount of need and want for the humans to kind of stay in the loop. I think the products that we develop are for users, and they work best when they are used by maybe not the most experienced legal professionals in the world, but certainly people who kind of know what they're doing. And you can think of it as a booster. It won't do absolutely everything at that one click, but it's there to kind of really partner and support people. And I think that's how we're kind of hopefully going to succeed as a company, and I think that legal tech will kind of flourish. So with that, I'll say thank you very much to Lowri and to Radhika. Our legal webinar series is continuing tomorrow. I think there's one each day this week. If anyone wants to register for any of the others, all of different topics, head over to robinai.co.uk. But with that, thank you very much to everyone who's attended, and in particular to our guests.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you
Have a
very
good-
much.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye.